by those federal agents. Right now, who you're looking at, those are people from the nonprofit called Casa DuPage. They actually were out here this morning, they told me. Their first report of some sort of activity from immigration officials came into them around 5:24, they said. And those folks are looking to enter that home and kind of take some more video of the damage. They say that what happened this morning was the biggest show of force they've seen in all of their work kind of responding and trying to help people with immigration issues. We know that Secretary Kristi Noem sent out a tweet this morning, and it read in part, "I was on the ground in Chicago today to make it clear we are not backing down." That post on X included video showing several people being led away in handcuffs.
Have you spoken with any direct witnesses to the arrest? You know, folks, neighbors in that area who might have seen people being taken into custody, or a person?
Yes, in fact, we actually have video from a witness who didn't want to be identified, but she said someone that she knows texted her around 5:50 this morning saying, "Hey, there's kind of some suspicious cars out by your house." She looked out the window, and that's when she apparently heard an explosion and started recording with her phone. And in that video, you can also see armed officers shining flashlights at a door on Chippewa Drive and also into a window. Another neighbor told us about the response from law enforcement that came from the air.
Awakened at 20 to 6 by the drone of the helicopter flying overhead, circling the house, circling the neighborhood, spotlight on, right over the house. Very unusual in our usually quiet neighborhood.
And how alarming was that?
Extremely alarming. The helicopter was loud. It was accompanied by 2 loud booms, and I was just trying to figure out what was going on. And then here I am this morning finding out that it was a little bigger than just a circling helicopter.
Lauren, what do we know about the person or people arrested? Have their identities been released, for instance?
The identities have not been officially released. Anybody I've spoken to on the ground here, including the folks from Casa DuPage, also don't have the names of the individuals taken into custody. According to Secretary Noem, the people that were arrested were taken in on offenses including DUI, felony stalking, and assault. There are also members of a rapid response team here in the area that have been sort of watching, waiting to see if there's any more activity from ICE. I could tell you it is very quiet out here. I don't see any vehicles that look like they could be federal officials, but you know, what do I know? They're probably pretty good at being out here undercover.
You know, I saw that snippet of the Homeland Security Secretary on social media of her somewhere. She says she was here, but have you or anyone you've spoken with this morning actually put eyes on Secretary Noem? Did they actually see her in Elgin or in the area?
Nobody I've spoken with had said that they actually saw Secretary Noem out here. However, people that I showed the video in Secretary Noem's tweet to said, "Oh yes, that's like right around here." So I can tell you she's not anywhere around here that we can see right now. She sent her tweet explaining what just after 9:30 today, so it's unclear if she was already on a plane and flying out of here, or if she's going to somewhere else in the Chicagoland area today. Dana, by the way, we also heard from Representative Lauren Underwood, who says she got debriefed by ICE recently that since September 6th, we're what, 10 days? Yeah, 10 days since September 6th, there have been 250 ICE arrests in the Chicago area.
You know, since September 6th, well, even before that, there's been very little information released about ICE arrests. Is any news conference planned today that you know of?
Not that we've heard of. We do have people walking up to us asking if we have heard about a press conference, but we're kind of in the dark right now. Perhaps Secretary Noem's tweet or post on X might be the only little bit of information that we do get today from an official that high up with Department of Homeland Security.
Okay, Lauren Victory in Elgin right now. Thank you so much, and keep it right here for the latest on the ongoing ICE operations. Our Sabrina Franza is headed to that area as well. We'll have live reports from her here on CBS News Chicago.
This has been breaking news from CBS News Chicago. This is breaking news from CBS News Chicago.
Mayor?
Hi.
Gregory Bovino is in town. He arrived this morning promising many more arrests by ICE of people he say are undocumented. What do you say to the people of Chicago who saw those videos this morning and felt fear and concern for their relatives and loved ones?
Well, look, I understand that the fear and the anxiety is real. That's what this president is attempting to promulgate. That is his tactic. The city of Chicago is a firm, welcoming city. And so in terms of how our local police department will behave, along with my administration, we're going to ensure that the people of Chicago know their rights. We're going to protect people's rights to be able to peacefully assemble and push back against this form of tyranny that is being promulgated throughout our entire country. And then finally, we are putting forth, again, more stronger executive orders to ensure that there are policies in place to ensure maximum protection for the people of Chicago. What I'm also grateful for, though, is that the number of people in this city that have come together and have put their arms around our immigrant community. Look, this is an important part of the fabric and the soul of Chicago. Immigrants from around the world, whether they're Polish, Jewish, Italian, immigrants have come to the city of Chicago to find absolute refuge. And we're talking about 3 and 4 generations later. And that's what the president is trying to interrupt. Somehow he's intimidated by the level of diversity in the makeup of the city of Chicago. This is a city that has a long history of resistance. Again, the city that birthed Keep Hope Alive, Yes We Can, right? The city that birthed the labor movement. And so we're going to continue to remain firm, and I get that people are feeling a level of anxiety, but they should be assured that as far as I'm concerned, in my administration, we're going to work with all of our stakeholders to ensure that the people of Chicago are protected and supported.
This afternoon, and the president renewed his threat to send the National Guard to Chicago over your objections and the objections of Governor Pritzker. Is there any reason for the president to deploy National Guard troops or other armed military personnel to Chicago to focus on crime or violence?
You know, Dr. King referred to militarism as a sickness. Unfortunately, this president is full of that sickness. There are no circumstances under which the deployment of American soldiers should be sent in cities across America. It's actually quite upsetting that this president has seduced a number of American people into his meretricious form of governance that has placed our democracy at incredible risk. That's why I put forth executive orders to ensure maximum protection. That's why we're going to continue to hold firm as a welcoming city. But this is why we're also going to reject this illness of militarism, of racism, the sickness of not being willing to address poverty. If this president was sincere about addressing crime in Chicago and American cities, he would not cut the budget by 30% of ATF. There's an opportunity for ATF to coordinate with local police departments across America to get illegal guns off the streets of Chicago and cities across America that are being illegally trafficked from states like Mississippi, Louisiana, Indiana. That's an effort that's worthwhile investing in. Unfortunately, it's pretty clear that the office of the president has been cheapened by this president.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
On the executive order, can you kind of specify how this directive to CPD to coordinate with protest organizers is different from current CPD policy? And can you walk through sort of an example of when this policy would come into play?
Well, thank you for that question. Let's look at what happened in Broadview. There's no policy in place that if the federal government interferes with our First Amendment rights, there's no policy in place. This executive order gives a clear order that in the event the federal government tramples on the Constitution, our police department has a responsibility to make sure that we're protecting our democracy. And we saw this happen in Broadview, where from a roof you had the federal government with armed, less lethal, bullets, but it's still bullets nonetheless. And so this is why this executive order is critical, because we want to make sure that there's a clear policy on what the CPD has a right to do now under my executive order.
On the budget task force that you assembled and the report that's out, it recommends increasing property taxes with the rate of inflation, saying the city needs its largest revenue source to keep up with the rate of inflation. Have you had a chance to read through that report, and do you agree with that recommendation?
I have not read through the entire report. As you know, this is a part of a larger package of engagement, whether it's this working group, our community engagement. We've had several community engagement meetings within communities. We have, again, our entire budget working group as well. I don't agree with that particular proposal that the working group has put forward. But one of the things that it's clear to note that the working group fully established that we do not have a spending problem in Chicago. We have a revenue challenge in Chicago. And that's an important conclusion that I believe was necessary for the people of Chicago to hear. And again, to know that we have brought together everyone, different facets of leadership, whether it's the business community, labor, community-based organizations, elected leaders, the neighborhoods themselves. Like, I'm literally taking all of the interests and ideas from a cross-section of individuals across our city to ensure that we deal with the structural damage that we've inherited. We're going to fix it, and we're going to do it together, though. Thank you.
Mayor, good morning.
Good morning.
We were told, our sources with News Nation were told that Secretary Noem is also in town as part of the Border Patrol enforcement efforts. Have you heard anything from DHS, your office specifically, and even to go a step further, have you heard anything from the White House as far as those threats to send the National Guard beyond what we heard from you guys within the last few weeks, that there had been no communication?
That still remains the same. We have not had any direct conversations from the White House. The president uses these really awkward interactions at the White House to randomly spew inaccurate information, or even, I guess the best thing that I could call them are suggestions at best. Threats, of course, is what they are more like. However, but there has not been any coordination with my office, our Chicago Police Department, to drive violence down in the city of Chicago. Look, we want criminals off the streets of Chicago. I want to be absolutely clear about it. We want them off the streets of Chicago. There's a way in which we can do that by upholding our Constitution, as well as working to keep the people of this city safe. This president is not interested in that. He has eroded the very sensibilities about our democracy, and our humanity continues to be trampled on by this president as well. But we're not going to tolerate it in the city of Chicago. We're going to stand firm. We're convicted in our values as it relates to standing up for working people and for the immigrant community. If this president was serious, he would coordinate with us and have conversations around the things that are actually working in our city.
Just one more question on the topic of crime in the city. Obviously, last week, the story involving suspects that were alleged to have robbed the Louis Vuitton store and then crashed into a man who was on his way to his final shift before his paternity leave really caught a lot of people's attention, and a lot of people very upset that an innocent man lost his life. Anything that you'd want to say just regarding those acts that we've seen from folks in the city? We've seen several pretty significant crash and grab sort of style crimes, and it seems to be catching the attention of a lot of people who may even be advocating for the National Guard to come in. What would you say, to the family impacted by that, and people who may have concerns about that type of violence in the city?
Well, look, it's my top priority, addressing violence in our city and community safety as a whole. I speak with the superintendent every day. We speak on a regular basis, sometimes throughout the day. And this is something that I've talked to him about. We are going to have more substantive conversations with business leaders in the city to find ways in which we can prevent these type of violent acts from occurring. Now, the good news is that we've caught them, right? And we're going to hold people accountable. This is what I said from the very beginning. It's why I've invested so much into our Detectives Bureau. And I'm grateful for the work of our local police department that was able to bring swift recovery, if you will, to what took place. And then most importantly, of course, when you see this type of tragedy, and particularly when loss occurs, it breaks your heart every time. We're talking about a family member, you know, an innocent bystander who gets caught up in this nonsense, right? And so we fully expect that there will be absolute accountability for these perpetrators, and we're going to continue to work with our police